8 points. That is all that separates Tyler Reddick from losing the NASCAR Cup Series points lead. And on Sunday, at Naval Base Coronado, he gave away a race win that could have protected it. If you are a NASCAR fan, subscribe, comment, and like this video before we get into it. Tyler Reddick entered the inaugural Anduril 250 at Naval Base Coronado as the points leader of the NASCAR Cup Series. He had won 5 of the first 9 races of the 2026 season, including the Daytona 500. His position at the top of the standings looked secure for most of the year, but Denny Hamlin had won 3 straight races heading into San Diego, and that winning streak had already started cutting into Reddick's cushion at the top. A win at Coronado would have done more than add another trophy. It would have restored breathing room in a points battle that was tightening every week. Reddick also entered the event having to start from the rear of the field after his number 45 Toyota failed inspection due to unapproved adjustments, alongside 2 other competitors, Eric Jones and Christopher Bell, who faced the same penalty. On the other side of the garage sat Corey Heim, a 23-year-old part-time driver competing in only his 13th career Cup Series start. Heim was the reigning 2024 Craftsman Truck Series champion and was already locked into a full-time ride with 23XI Racing starting in 2027. For now, he was still working through a partial schedule, racing selectively while the rest of his career took shape. Heim and Reddick were teammates, both driving for the organization co-owned by Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan. The race did not start in Heim's favor. He qualified 13th, but he fell back to 20th in the opening laps after struggling on a worn set of tires left over from qualifying. His crew chief, Robert Booty Barker, later said those were among the worst 2 sets of tires the team had used all weekend. Heim slammed into the wall twice during this stretch, tearing up his car in the process. Despite the damage and the early struggles, the number 67 Toyota inexplicably began picking up speed as the laps went on. The race itself unfolded across the 16-turn, 3.4-mile street course built around Coronado Island, just south of downtown San Diego, a circuit that featured an unforgiving series of tight corners and a chicane that claimed several cars throughout the afternoon. A massive break came on lap 32. Shane Van Gisbergen, who had started from the pole position, was caught in a 9-car wreck triggered when his Trackhouse Racing teammate Connor Zilisch and Austin Hill collided while racing for the lead on a restart. The incident caused significant damage to the outside wall and forced a red flag that lasted close to 9 minutes for repairs. Heim avoided the wreck entirely, with several of the race's fastest cars eliminated. Including the driver many considered the favorite on this type of circuit, the path toward the front opened up considerably. Connor Zilisch later reflected on the incident, saying, "I felt like I was giving Austin space, and the next thing, I was in the wall." By the final stage, Heim had worked his way back into contention. He restarted within the top 12 and steadily picked off cars ahead of him. With laps running out, he closed in on Kyle Larson, who was leading at the time, before setting his sights on his own teammate, Tyler Reddick, who had taken over the top spot. Both Heim and Larson made their final pit stops together with 16 laps remaining, and Heim's crew managed to hold serve, keeping pace with the reigning Cup Series champion off pit road. The closing laps produced the moment that defined the entire afternoon. On lap 73, Reddick nearly missed the entry to turn 2, and Heim immediately closed the gap. The 2 drivers ran side by side through turns 3 and 4, with Heim eventually taking the lead. Reddick then attempted a crossover move heading into turn 5, making contact with Heim's car and sending him toward the outside wall. Heim scraped the barrier, but kept his car under control. Reddick, who had just initiated the contact, lifted off the throttle and allowed Heim to pull back ahead. Corey Heim described the moment afterward. "He doored me down there in 5 and gave it back to me. That's something you don't see every day." Heim added further context about the battle leading into that moment, saying, "For a while there, I thought he was kind of playing with me." So 5 to go came, and it's just kind of time to put some pressure on him, see if I could get him to make a mistake. And sure enough, he did. Moments later, Reddick's race fell apart further. He suffered a flat left front tire and dropped all the way back to a 25th place finish, a result that would carry significant weight in the championship standings. What happened next turned the entire storyline. Speaking to reporters on pit road immediately after the race, Tyler Reddick offered an unprompted and remarkably direct admission about what had taken place. "I certainly overdid it and ran him into the wall and initiated the contact. Everything, so, yeah, just not the way you should race a teammate. 100% not the way you should race." Reddick did not stop there. He went to victory lane to personally apologize to Heim for the contact, telling him directly that he had been racing clean and that the mistake belonged entirely to Reddick. The admission mattered beyond just the optics of the moment. This was now the 5th consecutive race in which Reddick had finished worse than Hamlin, and his points lead in the championship standings had shrunk to just 8 points. Reddick acknowledged the broader pattern himself. "We're going down the wrong path right now, and we need to stop it." He also addressed the tire failure separately, admitting, "I don't know if I cut the tire during, before, or after. I'm not really sure. Really needed a good points day, and had another really bad one." The contact and the apology together created an immediate split in how the moment was being interpreted across the sport. Some viewed it as a rare and honest display of sportsmanship between teammates. Others saw it as something that undercut the entire spirit of competitive racing at NASCAR's top level. Carson Hocevar, who has a long-running history with Heim dating back to a Truck Series championship incident in 2023, was among the most vocal critics. Hocevar posted his reaction publicly, questioning whether handing back a position after contact devalues how much the drivers want to win. He went further, comparing the gesture to a basketball analogy involving Michael Jordan, suggesting that no driver competing at the highest level should be willing to simply return a position once it had been taken, regardless of how that position had changed hands. Hocevar elaborated that the sport already struggles with credibility among fans, and that a moment like this only reinforces the perception that winning carries less weight than it should at NASCAR's highest level. Fan reaction mirrored that same split. A portion of the NASCAR audience praised Reddick for owning his mistake immediately and correcting it in real time. Another portion argued that handing back a race-winning position, even after admitted contact, was simply not something that happens in a sport built around aggressive, win-at-all-costs competition. The counterargument focused on the sequence of events rather than the gesture itself. Reddick was already losing the position to Heim before the contact occurred. Heim had taken the lead cleanly through turns 3 and 4, and the contact in turn 5 happened only after Reddick attempted to retake a position he had already lost. By that interpretation, Reddick was not gifting a win. He was correcting an error that he himself had just created moments earlier. Beyond the controversy, the numbers from the race told their own story. Corey Heim's victory came in his 13th career Cup Series start, making him the 209th different competitor in history to win at NASCAR's premier level. It marked the first career Cup win for the number 67 car and the 3rd career Cup victory for crew chief Robert Booty Barker. The result also delivered a 1-2 finish for 23XI Racing, with Bubba Wallace finishing second behind Heim, giving the organization its 15th career Cup Series victory. Heim became the 3rd first-time winner of the 2026 season, joining Ty Gibbs, who won at Bristol, and Carson Hocevar, who won at Talladega. The race itself featured 20 lead changes among 13 different drivers across its 75 scheduled laps, with 7 cautions slowing the field for a combined 11 laps. Reaction from inside the garage reinforced just how unexpected the outcome had been. Denny Hamlin, who finished 14th after his own 3-race winning streak came to an end, spoke about Heim's performance with genuine surprise. Really surprised. I mean, truthfully, really surprised. Now, if you would have asked me in the middle of the race, I wouldn't have been that surprised. I got to race around him enough to know he had plenty of speed. This was not expected by any means. Hamlin also revealed a small but telling detail about the week leading into the race. He noted that it was the first week all season that Heim had not called him for advice ahead of a race, joking that Heim apparently felt confident enough not to need it. Kyle Larson, who finished 3rd, praised Heim's performance after the checkered flag, calling the win really cool and noting Heim's talent as a driver capable of winning on a demanding circuit like Coronado. Crew Chief Booty Barker added important context to Heim's mental state heading into the weekend. Barker referenced Heim's difficult experience at the Chicago street race the previous year when the team failed to qualify on what happened to be Heim's birthday. According to Barker, that setback stayed with Heim and provided motivation heading into this event, with Heim determined not to repeat that outcome on another street course. Barker also described his own reassurance to Heim after that earlier setback, recalling that he told Heim it was simply a temporary blip and that better results were still ahead. Looking ahead, the storylines from Coronado carry directly into the next stretch of the season. Reddick's own words after the race, that the team needs to stop the pattern of finishing behind Hamlin, set up direct pressure heading into the next event at Sonoma Raceway on June 28. For Heim, the conversation now shifts away from whether he can win, and toward whether he can contend consistently as he prepares for his full-time move to Cup Series competition in 2027. If you are a NASCAR fan, subscribe, comment, and like this video, and stay tuned for more on the tightening Reddick-Hamlin points battle and the ongoing tension between Heim and Hocevar.